p.m. in Wutu village in Buea subdivision, Fako division of the southwest region of Cameroon. Same time in Douala, Cameroon's economic capital city. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. With me, I'm Sean Sander. A devastating fire incident has swept through a refugee camp in Banduri, that's in the far north region of Cameroon, leaving 28 houses destroyed and numerous families without shelter. The camp, which hosts internally displaced persons, IDPs, and refugees mainly from the neighboring Czech Republic, was ravaged by the blaze. This story and more will be yours in this edition of the news. Made the right choice to stay, to be informed by the best of television network. This is Equinoxe television. With Wutu, we are broadcasting live from Douala, Cameroon's economic capital city. Equinoxe Center News Desk. Now we're starting on human interest. A fire incident that has ravaged at least 28 houses in a refugee camp that is in Bundari, in the locality, the far north region of Cameroon. The camp, which is involved internally displaced persons, was hosting several of them from the neighboring Czech Republic. The blaze ravaged homes and destroyed enormous properties, as we hear in the following report compiled by reporter Malak Glory.
In these amateur images, wild flames, thick smoke could be seen rising from the camp that serves as host to victims of the Boko Haram insurgency, including Chadian refugees and internally displaced persons in the town of Bundari in the far north region. The blaze caused fear and panic as residents escaped for their safety while calling for help. Bundari is one of many localities in the far north region that has seen its population swell as people flee violence, relying heavily on the local community for shelter and support. As a result of the fire incident, about 28 houses were burnt to ashes, causing a great loss to the Bundari community. Unfortunately, no human life was lost, but enormous material damage recorded. While the victims of the incident count their losses, investigations are on the way to unveil the exact cause of the inferno.
An unfortunate incident that has rocked Bundari, that's in the locality in the far north region of Cameroon, and most persons within the camp were internally displaced persons from the Czech Republic. And now we take you on to something else, this time around in Wutu, that's a village in Buea subdivision of the Fako division in the southwest region, where a land dispute is dividing the local population. The people say that camp has abandoned the village, with two opposing camps fighting on the piece of land. We have details with Rexafon from Buea.
25, Professor Jean-Claude Abaoyono, the erudite constitutional law expert, has been in detention. Close family sources indicate that he was arrested by gendarmes in civilian attire at his residence in Yaoundé without respecting the penal code. Calls have been abound for his unconditional release. Professor Moïse Timtweng, a university professor, says the arrest of Professor Abaoyono was simply uncalled for.
Les circonstances, n'est-ce pas, de l'interpellation du professeur Abaoyono montrent que toutes les règles en vigueur ont été violées.
Professor Timtweng adds that it is arbitrary and might go further to portray the government of Cameroon is anti-democratic.
Pour prouver que le Cameroun n'est pas une dictature sauvage, n'est-ce pas, que celle de libérer purement et simplement le professeur Abaoyono.
The jurist explains supporting an opposition candidate has never been a legal offense in Cameroon.
Il n'y a pas de crime à soutenir un opposant. Il n'y a pas ce n'est pas une hostilité à la patrie ou bien un déficit de patriotisme.
To Professor Fopakwete Roger, head of the University of Marwa Trade Union, the place of a senior professor like Professor Abaoyono is not in prison.
La place d'un intellectuel de la trame du professeur Jean-Calvin Abaoyono n'est pas dans une prison. mais sur la place de la République, dans des concertations, dans des négociations.
His arrest is completely unnecessary and should be condemned.
Je dénonce cette arrestation comme excessive et tout à fait inutile, surtout en contexte de bataille électorale.
Professor Jean Calvin Abayono was arrested prior to the proclamation of the presidential election results in Cameroon. He threw his support behind Issa Chiroma and had also earlier declared that if his arrest and detention can serve to free Cameroon and Cameroonians from misery, then so be it.
Que de libérer purement et simplement le professeur Abba Oyono, qui ne mérite pas, n'est-ce pas, l'embastillement dont il fait l'objet.
That was rather Staff Lady Annabella reporting on the controversial detention or arrest and detention of constitutional law professor Abba Oyono, who is said to be detained, held incommunicado as officials in Cameroon insist calls on his release. Now we talk something else to enhance flexibility and anticipate challenges that might come up within the African Cup of Nations AFCON. The Confederation of African Football CAF has increased the number of players each team is expected to invite to the tournament to 28. CAF says the decision is to enable each coach of each selection have a balanced team. In Cote d'Ivoire's 2023, it was 27, as sportsman Simanji Gangebe tells us in the following report.
And it is the inspirational Seko Fofana who has fired them into the early lead.
Few days to the start of the 35th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations, the Confederation of African Football CAF has again made changes in terms of how many players each participating team is supposed to bring for the tournament. According to a release from CAF, each team is supposed to come along for the competition with a total of 28 players, one player more than in the 34th edition of the tournament, which took place in Cote d'Ivoire. Out of the 28 players who will be invited by each team, CAF will take charge of 23 players, with the remaining 5 players to be taken care of by their different federations. According to CAF, the idea of getting up to 28 players will give a flexibility to the different technical staff, and it will enable the teams to better manage last-minute surprises like unwanted injuries in the heart of the tournament. With this reform, the coaches will have at their disposal several options to balance their team and anticipate challenges of the competition. This measure has been widely appreciated by football federations. The final list of the 23 to 28 players must be submitted no later than December 11th, 2025, 10 days before the opening match on December 21st. With about 2 weeks until the start of the AFCON, the excitement is building.
And glinting in the dark, and the ball in, and they do find the net with their first shot on target, Cameroon.
And that's all for the first part of the news. Coming up is Talking Point. Still with us, ladies and gentlemen. Hi everyone, welcome to Talking Points. Tonight we are receiving a public health expert, Dr. Mfo Ahmed. With him we'll be looking into the causes, complications and preventions of fungal infection. Thanks for accepting our invitation, Dr. Ahmed Mfo.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Thank you. Good afternoon once more.
What should we understand by fungal infection as we get into this talk?
Okay, Mr. Armstrong, fungal infection is generally a public health emergency or a public health crisis. It's an infection which is caused by fungi itself when it gets into the body. And fungi are a group of organisms, sometimes classified like plants. Most of them are non-pathogenic, but the few that are pathogenic causes disease in plants and animals. So when they have access to the body or the skin, they can result to complications that we are going to see ahead.
How common is this public health concern in Cameroon particularly, doctor?
Fungal infection is actually very, very predominant in the Cameroon communities because of sometimes because of our environment, our hygienic conditions, the way we live in the cosmopolitan areas, and then equally provoked by some of the food we consume on a daily basis.
Now, what are the health complications brought forth by fungal infection?
Yeah, fungal infection causes so many health complications, like you have ringworm, which is common that we've been seeing in the body of the people, children especially. You have eczema, you have dandruff, you have something like candidiasis, what we call vaginal yeast infection. We have something like eczema. We have athlete's foot, we call it commonly known as watery. And then we have the pulling out of nails, where some people lost nails at the very early stage of life. This is caused by fungi. Sometimes it manifests in form of pimples and rashes all over the body.
Can we also have the most telling signs and symptoms of fungal infection?
Yes, some of the signs, the predominant signs and symptoms which are manifested by fungal infection, you have itching. Itching is especially caused by a fungi called the jock. The jock itch, it causes the body to itch and makes the body sometimes discoloration of the body. I think this is the other illness that can change the color of the skin. Then you have a burning sensation. Sometimes the body is itching and burning, like as if your skin is being roasted with fire. And then at times too, you have painful urination. This occurs mostly in women. When you have painful urination and sometimes pains again during sexual intercourse. Then you have vaginal itches or the itching of the genitals, common in women, followed by some whitish discharges or some discharges. But we have to don't confuse this because chlamydia also does the same. But that of fungi bring us small rashes around the genitals, and you can have vaginal discharges coming out. While that of chlamydia may manifest in another way, having yellowish discharges.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Now, how is this fungal infection diagnosed most commonly in Cameroon?
There are three main steps in the hospital where fungi can be diagnosed. The first thing, the physician may do what we call physical examination, gathering the vital signs and symptoms before concluding that it is fungi. Sometimes they may manifest very visibly and you are placed on drugs. And at times when the signs and symptoms are more confused, you are sent to the lab to detect exactly which form of fungi must have been the cause of what you're suffering from, so that specific drugs are given for specific fungi. Then you have equally what we call scraping. Tissues of the infected area can be scraped and then put on a slide and then observed under the microscope to know exactly which fungi is the cause of what you're going through. And then we have biopsy. In a case where the fungi has gone so chronic, a biopsy might be carried out. Histopathology, that means part of the skin is cut and examined. Tissues of the skin are cut and examined under the slide to see exactly which specific fungi is the cause of the problem.
Interesting, Doc. Please kindly tell us if there are some further complications that can accompany a chronic fungal infection.
Yeah, when fungi gets chronic, I think before we even come to that, we need to also make our audience understand that fungi, there are some people who are more prone to fungi infection, like people suffering with HIV/AIDS, people who have cancer, people who have suffering from diabetes, and people suffering from a broken immune system. They are more prone to fungal infection. And the chronic stage of fungal infection can be manifested by peeling up of the body. The skin peels off completely, especially in the areas that are affected. You also have loss of nails. When it goes so chronic, you see some people without nails. They lost all their nails is lost because of attack by fungi. It starts step by step and becomes more chronic and more intensified. And then secondly, it can cause sterility. Fungal infection, continuous fungi attack in the genitals can destabilize the reproductive system. So when not early treated, it can lead to sterility, especially in women who are more exposed to fungi.
But that is not... Can we then say that fungal infection is an early open manifestation or a sign and symptom of HIV infection or cancer? Yes, Doc, you made mention of the fact that those suffering from cancer and HIV are most exposed to fungal infection. Now, my follow-up question is, if we can conveniently say that fungal infection is an early sign and symptom of HIV infection or cancer?
No, I think what we're saying here is that those who are already suffering from a system defect, like cancer, like maybe diabetes, or they are suffering from another chronic infection in the system are more prone because the immune system is battling to handle a lot of things. So it leads to the breaking of the immune system. We know that the loss of hair too can manifest, which is still fungal infection. It can manifest with women who are undergoing menopause, what we call loss of hair, most commonly known in our community as bamba. So it is still part of fungal infection. It doesn't mean actually it's a big problem, but it is that those who are facing this are more prone to fungal infection.
Now, what are the most common drugs used in treating fungi within the Cameroonian context? I keep insisting in Cameroon. Obviously, we're in Cameroon. So, in Cameroon, what are the most common drugs that can be administered in order to treat fungal infection?
Yeah, I think it will be very important to that as we are moving to drugs, we should give our audience some preventive measures, because it's a kind of a hygienic, poor hygienic condition could lead to a lot of fungal spread. So the caution we can give to our audience is that people should avoid putting on innerwears which are nylon, because nylon promotes moisture in the skin, and this moisture attracts fungi and helps like harbor for fungi to grow up. So putting on cotton innerwears is the best. And also iron was invented not only to make our dresses light straight, but it was also a biological weapon to kill pathogens in our dresses. So ironing dresses can reduce some of this because fungi is found everywhere. And we avoid putting on wet dresses and exchanging personal items like towels. This could lead to the spread. And the most common medications, which is used at the context of Cameroon in handling fungi at the level of the hospital, you have nystatin. You have fluconazole, which is more common. These are the over-the-counter medication which is found in all therapies in Cameroon to use. Sometimes, if it is not blood, maybe fungi infected in the blood system, you can use simple pomade. Over-the-counter pomade will eradicate skin fungi, which has not gone as far as blood infection.
Now, Dr. Agbe, talking about transmission, you actually anticipated my next question. I want to know, how is fungi transmitted and how can that be possibly prevented?
Fungi is a disease which is transmitted by contact, which means that it is not airborne, it is contact. Every day we inhale fungi, but it's that most of them are not pathogenic. So when we take those which are pathogenic, it can be transferred through sputum, like through your spit. If somebody has what we call the oral thrush, which is fungi of the throat, it can easily be transmitted through the sputum, and then exchanging innerwears, as I said before, can lead to fungal transmission. Equally, you have swimming pools. Normally, big hotels which are running swimming pools, they need to put a detergent to disinfect the swimming pools, because those swimming in the swimming pool, those who are exposed or those who are really suffering from skin fungi, can leave back some spores in the water, and these spores can lead to infect others who are coming to swim. And then another thing that triggers fungi to spread more are fermented food. So people already, when we reduce fermented food like water food, like bobolo, like gari, these things do not cause fungi, but rather they trigger fungi sporulation. They cause fungi to multiply more. So you see, when it multiply more, it spread more. So where it becomes more predominant in the community, and it can easily spread as through these means that I've explained to you. And then another peculiar thing that fungi spread through, you can visit, when you visit a house where people are using the same lotion, maybe one savon, one sponge in bathing, you can easily spread spores, fungi spores.
That was Dr. Akman Fo, a public health expert based in the city of Douala. Thank you immensely for your time and knowledge shared, Dr. Akman Fo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure sharing with you. Thank you for your keen attention. Stay in the company of interesting programs on Equinoxe Television. Take the rendezvous for tomorrow, same time, for another edition of the Primetime News. Meantime, our next news will come up today in the French language at 8 p.m.